AI isn't replacing developers, it's exposing who was never really one in the first place. I know, that sounds harsh. LinkedIn is full of people telling you they built a full stack app in 20 minutes using ChatGPT or Claude. Bootcamps are shutting down, junior devs are panicking, and the narrative you keep hearing is that developers are done. Well, they're wrong, but not for the reasons you think. What's happening right now in 2026 is not a death sentence for the industry. It's a filter, a brutal, unforgiving filter that is about to separate the people who understand software from the people who just happen to memorize syntax. And if you are in tech, thinking about getting into software, or trying to figure out where the industry is actually headed, the next few minutes might change how you see the next 5 years of your career. So stay with me because the playbook has changed and most people haven't read the new one yet. Hi, I'm Ramesh. Welcome to Synapse Flow, where we connect the dots between AI, IoT, and the global stories that shape our world. Let's dive in. Let's start with what the stock market is actually telling us, because most people are reading it wrong. Tech stocks are down. Microsoft, Oracle, Alphabet, Meta, even high flyers like WiseTech Global and Block. And the knee-jerk reaction from the internet is, see, AI was all hype. But that is not what's happening. What's actually happening is something called ROI fatigue. Over the last 2 years, the biggest companies on earth have gone on an infrastructure spending spree unlike anything we've ever seen. Meta alone committed over $65 billion to AI infrastructure. Microsoft poured in tens of billions. Google, Amazon, the same story. Collectively, the industry has spent hundreds of billions of dollars on GPUs, data centers, and model training. And what did investors get back? Not the productivity miracle they were promised. Not yet. The market isn't saying AI is fake. The market is saying we've seen the receipts and we're still waiting for the revenue. That's a very different statement. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The companies responding to this pressure have split into two camps. The first camp, the not so smart camp, is doing what panicking companies always do, cutting headcount, using AI as an excuse to lay people off and shrink their way to profitability. And there is not a single example in business history where shrinking your way to the top has ever worked long term. The second camp is doing the opposite. They are using AI as augmented intelligence. They are deploying tools like GitHub Copilot and AI-assisted code review to turn 2-year project backlogs into 8-month delivery cycles. They are not shrinking to survive. They're innovating to dominate. And the gap between these two camps is about to become a canyon. Now, I need to introduce you to a concept that might be the single most important idea for understanding where this industry is going. It's called the Jevons Paradox. In the 1860s, an economist named William Stanley Jevons observed something counterintuitive about coal. When the steam engine became more fuel efficient, everyone expected coal consumption to drop. Instead, it skyrocketed. Why? Because the efficiency made coal-powered applications so cheap that entirely new use cases became feasible. More efficiency didn't reduce consumption, it exploded it. And this pattern repeats across every major technological shift. Take radiologists. In 2016, Geoffrey Hinton, one of the godfathers of deep learning, publicly said, "We should stop training radiologists because AI would replace them within 5 years. It's 2026 now. We're training more radiologists than ever." Why? Because AI didn't replace the radiologist. AI handled the routine scans, which freed radiologists to take on a massive backlog of complex diagnostics that were previously too expensive or time-consuming to perform. Demand increased. Take spreadsheets. When VisiCalc and then Excel came along, people predicted the death of the accounting profession. What actually happened? Spreadsheets made financial analysis so fast and cheap that every department in every company started doing it. The number of people doing analytical work didn't shrink. It multiplied by orders of magnitude. And here's my favorite example. TMs. When ATMs rolled out in the 1970s and 80s, everyone said bank tellers were finished. And yes, the number of tellers per branch went down. But ATMs made it so cheap to operate a bank branch that banks opened dramatically more branches. The total number of bank tellers in the United States actually went up. AI is doing the exact same thing to software development right now. Yes, it's making individual coding tasks faster, but it's also making software development cheap enough that a flood of new projects, products, and automations that were previously too expensive to build are now economically viable. The total demand for people who understand software isn't shrinking, it's expanding. The nature of what they do is just shifting. So if demand is expanding, why does everyone feel so anxious? Because there's a critical distinction that most people are ignoring. I call it swimming versus shipping. Right now, anyone can ship. With AI tools, no-code platforms, and drag-and-drop builders, a non-technical founder can spin up a working prototype in a weekend. And that's genuinely impressive. But shipping is not the same as swimming. Being on the ship is great when the sea is calm. AI writes your code. Cursor auto-completes your logic. Vercel deploys your app. Everything works. You feel like a developer. Then something goes wrong. Think about the CrowdStrike incident in July 2024. A single faulty kernel-level update crashed 8.5 million Windows machines worldwide. Airlines grounded. Hospitals went to paper records. Banks went offline. And the people who fixed it weren't the ones who knew how to prompt an AI. They were the ones who understood operating systems at the kernel level, who could manually boot into safe mode and delete a specific driver file from the Windows directory. Or think about Log4 Shell in late 2021. A zero-day vulnerability in a logging library that basically every Java application on Earth depended on. The fix required understanding not just the vulnerability itself, but dependency trees, class loading, JNDI lookups, and how to patch systems that couldn't be taken offline. AI tools at the time were useless for this. The people who saved the internet that week were the ones who truly understood the stack from top to bottom. This is the difference between shipping and swimming. The ship handles normal conditions. But when the ship goes down, and it always eventually does, only the swimmers survive. And here's what's changing in 2026. Companies are catching on. For mission-critical projects, for financial systems, for healthcare, for infrastructure, hiring managers are increasingly filtering for swimmers. While 80% or more of developers use AI daily, the top-tier roles, the ones that pay 150, 200, 250,000 and up, are going to people who have mastered their base stack: Java, Python, C#, Go, the MERN stack. People who use AI as an accelerant, not a crutch. There's a massive difference, and the market is starting to price it in. Now here's the part that nobody wants to talk about, because it makes the AI narrative a lot more complicated. Yes, AI is making
developers faster. Studies show engineers are completing roughly 21% more tasks with AI assistance. That sounds great on a slide deck, but here's the ugly truth underneath that number. Code quality has dropped by about 9%, and process friction, the overhead of coordination, review, and debugging, has increased dramatically. Why? Because AI generates code at a pace that humans cannot review effectively. When one developer can produce the output of two, somebody still has to read all of it, test all of it, review all of it, and make sure it actually works correctly. And that somebody is a human whose throughput hasn't magically doubled. The result is what I call technical debt acceleration. We are not just accumulating technical debt at the normal rate anymore. We're speed running it. AI can generate 1,000 lines of plausible looking code in minutes, but plausible looking is not the same as correct. And when that code ships with subtle bugs, edge cases, or security vulnerabilities baked in, the cleanup cost downstream is enormous. This has forced two responsibilities into the core developer workflow that weren't there before. First, mandatory security awareness. This isn't optional anymore. With global data privacy regulations tightening and geopolitical tensions making cyber attacks a daily reality, every developer now needs to understand secure coding practices, not at a surface level, at a "this is my code and I am personally accountable for what or it exposes" level. Security is no longer just the job of a dedicated SecOps team. It's everyone's job. Second, documentation. And I know nobody wants to hear this, but when AI enables you to produce a massive volume of work at speed, human memory simply cannot keep up. If you're not documenting your decisions, your architectural choices, your reasoning, you are building a system that nobody, including you, will be able to maintain 6 months from now. The irony is beautiful. You should be using AI to help you document the work that AI helped you produce. So what does the actual developer role look like now? You're no longer a musician. You're a maestro, a conductor. Here's what that means in practice. The 20-person engineering department, it's collapsing into 5 to 7-person units. Typically, you'll see 2 front-end engineers, 2 back-end engineers, a QA, and maybe a dedicated DevOps or platform engineer. Now, this varies by domain. A fintech company building trading systems will still have larger, more specialized teams. But the trend is clear. Smaller teams, broader responsibilities, higher output per person. And the skill profile has changed completely. The era of the pure specialist is fading. What companies want now is the T-shaped engineer. Deep expertise in one area, but broad working knowledge across the entire stack. If you're a front-end developer, you can't just know React anymore. You need to understand how your UI talks to the back-end cluster. You need to know enough about Kubernetes and Docker to debug deployment issues. You need to understand CI/CD pipelines well enough to ship your own features end-to-end without waiting on someone else. This also means agility is your insurance policy. And I mean career agility. If you've spent 5 years exclusively in one domain, say transport or entertainment, and that domain gets disrupted or contracts, you need to be able to pivot. The engineers who are thriving right now are the ones who can move between domains. Fintech, healthcare, virtual reality, energy. The underlying engineering skills transfer. The domain knowledge can be learned, but only if your foundation is strong enough to support it. Now, I want to talk about what I think is the most underrated opportunity in tech right now, and almost nobody is positioning themselves for it. Local AI and edge computing. Everyone is focused on cloud-based AI, OpenAI's API, Anthropic's API, Google's Gemini. And those are powerful tools. But here's what the market is quietly telling us. The edge computing and on-premise AI market is projected to surpass $100 billion by the mid-2030s. Why? Because entire industries cannot use cloud AI. Hospitals have patient data that legally cannot leave their servers. Defense contractors operate air-gapped systems with no internet connection whatsoever. Banks have compliance requirements that forbid sending sensitive financial data to third-party APEs. These organizations need AI that runs entirely on their own hardware. And right now, almost nobody knows how to do this well. Think about it. The overwhelming majority of developers interact with AI through an API call. They send a prompt to the cloud. They get a response back. That's the extent of their knowledge. But deploying a large language model locally, tuning it for specific hardware constraints, running inference on a machine that has never touched the internet, optimizing a model to run on a single GPU instead of a cluster, that's a completely different skill set. And the supply of people who can do it is tiny compared to the demand. Tools like Olama, Llama.cpp, and VLLM have made local model deployment more accessible than ever. Lightweight Kubernetes distributions like K3s let you orchestrate containers on minimal hardware. You can literally build a home lab, a 5-node cluster with a decent GPU, and start developing real deployable skills in edge AI. And here's the career angle. 95% of hiring managers in recent surveys say they value hands-on, demonstrable experience over formal degrees. A home lab where you've deployed local LLMs, built retrieval-augmented generation pipelines, and run inference on constrained hardware is worth more on your resume than most certifications. The roles in this space, infrastructure engineers, ML ops specialists, edge AI developers, are commanding premium salaries because there simply aren't enough people who can do the work. So let me bring this all together. Here's your blueprint. First, reject the illusion of coding. The ability to produce code is no longer a differentiator. AI has commoditized that. What has not been commoditized is the ability to understand why code works, to diagnose why it doesn't, and to architect systems that hold up under real-world pressure. Second, learn to swim. Master at least one base stack deeply, not at a tutorial level. At a, I can debug this at 3 in the morning when production is on fire level. Java, Python, C#, Go, the MER and stack. Pick one and go deep. Then use AI to go faster within that expertise, not as a replacement for it. Third, become T-shaped. Keep your depth but expand your width. Learn enough DevOps to deploy your own code. Learn enough security to audit it. Learn enough about the business domain to understand what you're actually building and why. Fourth, position yourself at the edge, literally. The local AI and edge computing space is wide open. Build a home lab. Deploy models locally. Learn what it takes to run AI without the cloud. This is where the puck is going, and almost nobody is skating there yet. And fifth, document everything. Use AI to help you document the work AI helps you produce. This sounds circular, but it's the new reality. The developers who leave a clear trail of decisions, trade-offs, and context are the ones who will be trusted with bigger and more important systems. The stock market might be volatile, the headlines might be scary, but the value of a human being who can think critically, architect intelligently, and orchestrate AI to drive real results has never been higher. The question isn't whether there's a future in software development. There absolutely is. Remember what I said at the start. This is a filter. But filters don't eliminate people. They sort them. The developers who come out the other side of this moment are going to be the most capable, most versatile, and most valuable engineers this industry has ever produced. The only question is whether you're going to be one of them. That's the blueprint. Now go build.